Clarity. Law of attraction, clarity. I deserve to buy to drive a new car. Are you there yet? I deserve to drive a used car, and then you'll drive a used car, and you'll notice everybody who's driving used cars, and you'll get ticked off at the people driving new cars. So I finally got to the point where I decided I deserved to drive a brand new car. I'm 6'5", I like to go fast, I like to do things, so I wanted a sports car. I decided I deserved a sports car. Well, when you're 6'5" and still weigh about 240, there's not a whole lot of choices, eh? I'm in Hawaii, I'm on a vacation, I'm like, I'm going to just go pay my money, I'm going to rent a red Ferrari for one day. This would be cool. I get in the Ferrari, I pop off the little coupe, the windshield comes to right there. I look like Mr. Potato Head. I'm driving, I can't even get it out of first gear. I finally get going, I look up, boom, get bugged. Stupidest idea I ever had. The only sports car I can fit in is a Porsche because those Carrera seats are right on the floorboard. I have good headroom. What happened when I finally decided I deserved to buy and drive a brand new Porsche? Suddenly I started noticing other Porsches on the highway. Test yourself. There was a guy at the end of my street. He was driving a Porsche. I'm like, man, I didn't know that. Man, what is he doing, selling drugs? What's going on around here, man? What's up with that? Then I got really clear. I deserved to drive a 911S Targa with the whale fin on the back, a turbocharged Porsche. What happened? As soon as I got clear and decided I deserved to drive that car, I noticed all the other 911S turbocharged Porsches with the whale fin on the back. I couldn't believe how many there were. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, they're all over. Then I got real clear. I wanted to drive a charcoal gray 911S Targa, turbocharged with a whale fin on the back. And what happened? It's like one of you ladies go into a dance and you think you have the only dress like this, and there's 9 other women there going, oh, what a drag. I was told this was a one of a kind. I couldn't believe how many people had the exact same car I had. And you know what happened? It was so impressive to me because now that I became clear on what I wanted, I was attracted to those who also became clear on what they wanted. Can you tie this into your belief system? When you know what you believe, you will notice other people who believe like you believe. About core values, about ethics, about honesty, about trust, about love. It's so important that we understand this law of attraction begins with clarity, begins with I trust myself because I know I have so much potential. I know the answers are inside of me. I just got to hang around with the right people who will help me get it out and do the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. That's leadership. Let's not have an election. Let me give you a title and a little hat. It's not leadership. So what happens? You immediately attract others, and it's an instantaneous brotherhood, an instantaneous sisterhood. I pull up into a left-hand turn lane in my Porsche. All of a sudden, a car exactly like mine, a Porsche just like that. Somebody who was just as clear on what they wanted and what they deserved as I was. Pulls in a left-hand turn lane. Instant brotherhood. He flashes his light. I'm like, dude. He's like, I'm like, yeah. Do you realize the same thing happens if you're driving a 1964 rusted out Ford Falcon with a bad shock and one muffler that smokes when you sit there for longer than 5 seconds? You pull in a left-hand turn lane, you're in your HUD, and another HUD exactly like yours pulls in a left-hand turn lane, still instantaneous brotherhood, sisterhood. He flashes his one light. You flash back. He's like, hey, what's up, man? Welfare, food stamps. Hey, dude, bro, what's up, baby? Yeah. If you don't like what you're attracting, change what's attracting it. And if you don't have good friendships, to have that kind of a friend, you have to first be that kind of a friend. Personal leadership is so vitally important we understand that. What I want to do is I want to take you into the world of education to make my point. Now that we've talked about practical application, we've talked about becoming a songwriter, passion, creativity, and imagination, becoming the best friend, the best child, the best student, the best professor, the best doctor, the best librarian, whatever you are. It's about personal stretch. It's about looking inside of us. Because we've talked about that, let's take it to the world of education. And the reason why I use teachers is this last example taking us into the conclusion of what I wanted to talk about. Is because educators are responsible for every single one of us. Think about how powerful it is to be an educator. When you sign up for a professor's class, do you just kind of automatically trust that he or she is qualified to teach it and knows what they're supposed to know about it? Yeah. What if they're only talking out of a book and it's only theory instead of practical application knowledge? Then we don't learn, do we? They confuse activity with accomplishment. Sometimes we don't have learning disabilities. Sometimes there are teaching disabilities. Do you understand? Because they're not willing to get out from behind the podium and teach. And teaching only takes place when you are learning, not when I am talking. So let me pay tribute to teachers because I believe that they're in charge of the world. If we want to change America, we just need to change it in our classrooms, and that's why it's such an honor for me to be here at Utah Valley University. Teaching is the profession that makes all other professions possible. No one in our world would even have a job if it wasn't for our educators. They're the smartest people in our world. They could work for any company, any major corporation, and yet they decide to teach us what we need to know so we can walk out of our school buildings each day fired up to make our dreams come true. I absolutely love and honor great educators because they teach us the practical application of leadership. Here are 2 suggestions. Number 1, quote, "The only place from which a person can grow is where he or she is." That's teaching 101. The only place from which a person can grow is where he or she is. We have to go where they are physically and emotionally. Only there can we gently invite them to learn. Only there can we gently invite them to improve. Great leadership principle that we learn from our educators, from the great teachers in our world at every level. Let me give you an example of how this works. I wanted an illustration about what I just quoted. The only place from which a person can grow is where he or she is. And because I wanted to use educators as the template for success, for teaching leadership, for living leadership, I went to one of my old high school teachers, one of my heroes. His name was Mr. Croft. Mr. Croft was never one of my classroom teachers, but that didn't stop him from touching my life. You see, leadership isn't just about people in front of you. It's about living your life in a way so people want to be around you, the law of attraction. And then when they leave you, they say, "I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again." Mr. Croft taught anthropology, so I never signed up for his class. The only thing I know about anthropology is that he came from the goo, went through the zoo, and now we're you. Whoop-de-doo. But every single day, Mr. Croft would be outside of his classroom, touching our lives, reaching out, going where we were physically and emotionally so he could gently invite us to grow. Mr. Croft and I, we became great friends, and he would always be at the very beginning of every single football game. And we'd have our little sign. I was one of the captains, and get to doing a little pregame warm-up, and he'd be over in the corner and be like, this little sign, and he'd flash it back that he was there for us, go for it, make us proud, represent the school. Now that we're adults and we're friends on a different level, turns out he never even stayed to the games. He wasn't a football fan. He was a Dan fan, and he influenced my friends that never had him as an in-classroom teacher either. He understood leadership. He understood the principles of leadership, the laws of attraction, and all the things we've discussed. So I phoned him up. I said, "Mr. Croft, I'm on this kick. The only place from which a person can grow is where he or she is. Can you give me an example from your world that I can share in the corporate arena to prove that the answers are in the box, that right answers apply to all of us regardless of our industry?" He said, "Yeah, in what context?" I said, "What's the toughest thing that you face as an educator?" He said, "Classroom management, classroom discipline." I said, "Discipline, huh?" I said, "Do you use positive discipline?" He said, "What's that?" I said, "You cannot increase a person's performance